This is Dennis Black, and here's your sales tip of the week. As we discussed last week, the importance in dealing with today's borrower focuses on choosing the right product. By asking the proper questions, we can avoid getting involved in a rate-based dialogue too quickly with our client. As we then analyze the critical components of how someone's going to make a decision, and as we reviewed last week, the importance of really understanding the commitment the borrower makes is the largest debt decision they will make in their entire life. Our job is to ask the right questions to set up that proper product recommendation. So let's continue along that line. When we look at critical questions to ask, one of the ones that is overlooked, I feel the most, is a simple question. How long do you see yourself staying in your property? Now, many borrowers may not know the answer to this, in particular a first-time borrower. But as you analyze people's moving trends and ask them how many homes have they owned, what was their pattern of moving previously, you start to picture and envision with the borrower their patterns of moving, which will guide you to product recommendation. Is this the final home? How old are their children? The children's age is important because it will recommend potentially, if they're going to stay in the property, a recommendation to build up equity versus just cash flow. If they're going to downsize after the children go to school, then you might look at cash flow being more important than equity buildup. All these questions are critical to ask so you understand the right product recommendation. Now, as we have discussed on previous sales tips for all of you on this flash briefing, it is important to understand in any dialogue, whether it be on the phone or with the borrower across the table or at your desk, make sure that you are taking quality notes. The notes you take from the questions you pose to the client are their responses. By using their responses when you get towards the end, you can make a solid recommendation based on the customer's input. What this is known as is the principle of ownership. They own it since they responded to your questions. You recap or narrate it to guide them to the discussion leading to the close. The way sales works most effectively is a 4-step sequence. Questions, listening, notes, then finally summary and close. When we think about the summary, what this does is tie the beginning of the call to your request for action to be taken. Whether you're on the phone or in person, the summary ties everything up nicely in a 30 to a 45-second recap of the key points. It is so important to remember, whenever you interact with a client, that the notes you take were their responses to your inquiries. This means they own it, and that's why you use their words. And the two words most powerfully used in a summary and a close are the words you and your. You mentioned this was important. Here were your needs. When the client hears that back, they understand not only did you listen to them, but you're reminding them of why they should go ahead and apply with you. This concept will set up in our next session the 3 most powerful words in sales. But let's get back to some critical basics. The first basic is that questioning plan. Start off with questions to understand the individual, the person you're interacting with. Then get involved in the transaction. Is it a refinance looking for cash out, or is it a purchase? If it is a purchase, make sure you inquire as to who the realtor is so you can get them involved and on your side as quickly as possible after you complete the call with the borrower. When you get into analyzing product recommendation, all the questions we've previously mentioned last week as well as this week lead you towards then suggesting in the 4th stage of your meeting the proper product recommendation. Once you've made that, then you go into your strong summary leading to asking to start the loan process. As previously mentioned last year, a couple words you don't want to avoid whenever possible. The first is application. People tend to get a little bit nervous when they hear that word. Instead, start your conversation off when you close by saying to initiate the process, to start the loan, to get the ball rolling, to pick the proper product, are all things that are more acceptable to a borrower than that finite word application. When you're in the actual application, before you send out all your disclosures, then you have to make sure you use that word, but you do not have to use that word to start the application process itself. So when we look at all the tools that we suggest, remember, question, listen, summarize, and close. Next week, we'll give you the 3 most powerful words and how to use them effectively to increase your closings in 2020. Good luck and good selling.